about the new release. What's up, TikTok? What's up, YouTube? How's everybody doing? I'm excited about the new release of my workbook, Love and Football: How to Play on the Same Team with Your Spouse. Now, this workbook, what makes this workbook stand out is, well, first of all, let me give a little backdrop, okay? First of all, let me tell you how this happened. Because for me, I'm a huge football fan. I love the game represent 216. I am from that 216. Stand up, Cleveland, stand up. So, loving the game of football since maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I used to watch the game with my dad would come through sometimes, and we would watch the game. And my brother, he would be, we would all watch the game, you know. And growing up in Cleveland, we were all diehard fans. So no matter how bad the Browns sucked, we watched the game. We watched the game all the way through. And so we learned some perseverance in Cleveland, if you will. And so I just continued to watch the game as time went by, and I started to understand the game a little more. So, of course, with me doing relationship coaching and pre-engagement and all that other stuff, and life after divorce, I was thinking, what would be a better way to tie in football with relationships, with marriage? Now, I just posted a YouTube short not too long ago about an article I read on Psychology Today about the correlation of how football can actually bring couples together, and how having like common interests actually help relationships last longer. From Psychology Today, I'll have a link in the description below. So as I was looking at this, I was like, aha, I knew I was right. I knew there was a connection between the game of football and marriage and relationships. And so I will say that this is the second edition. Okay, this is the second edition because I wrote this book back in 2015. And so when I wrote the book back then, I was married before, and so I wrote this book 10 years ago. And so I decided, being more mature, more emotionally mature, I was like, let me dust this book off and let me give it another chance, because I really like the way things work out when it comes to relationships and understanding the game of football. And so I titled this Die Hard Football Fans Only, because I love seeing husbands and wives or significant other, whoever you with. I like to see both of them together. I like to see how they interact during the game, especially going to a live game, let alone in your living room. I love to see the camaraderie. I love to see the arguing back and forth, because somebody might like Pittsburgh, somebody might like Cleveland, somebody might like Philadelphia, and a lot of times it's usually husbands and wives. They usually have two different teams. The husband's an Eagle fan, the wife is a Cowboys fan, and I'm like, how did y'all get together? Y'all will always be apart, like in the Cowboys and the Eagles. But anyway, I was looking at the Psychology Today article, and they took a piece from Dr. John Gottman, and they compared the bids to connect. I'm going to come back to the bids to connect and what does that mean, because Dr. John Gottman talks about that. And so in the article, he talked about how the importance of a quarterback and a wide receiver, how they need to be in sync, right? They need to understand that we're going to run these plays in practice, and we're going to keep running these plays until we get it. And no, neither one of us are bigger than the playbook. The playbook is how we're going to win. Is how we're going to make our teamwork be stronger than what it was before. And so they talked about that in the article, and then they talked about Dr. John Gottman and bids to connect. What is bids to connect? Bids to connect is when you do certain things for your spouse that you're interested in, but you kind of want them to be a part of your world too, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. And so it can be something as simple as, hey babe, check out this meme. Or you get Instagram, your wife or your significant other, They send you like Instagram reels. How many Instagram reels do y'all get a day? How many? I know I get a bunch of reels a day, but those are bids to connect. Hey, check this out. This meme. What did you think of this? Hey, babe, can you help me cut up the broccoli, or can you help me cut up the food while we prepare for dinner? Those are bids to connect. They're little small little gestures that they want you to be a part of their world. And if you miss the bids to connect, it ultimately destroys the relationship because it's them saying without saying, I want to spend some time with you. I don't know how many of you actually say to your spouse or your significant other, I want us to spend some time together. If so, let me know in the comments. But a lot of people, they don't do that. They don't say, hey, babe, I miss you. I want us to spend time together. What they do is they do the bids to connect. They do different little things to try to get you involved in their world. You might not necessarily like it, but if it's beneficial to that other person, loving them, a token of your love would be me coming into their world and understanding them, right? And so a lot of times relationships they miss that. And in the Psychology Today episode, the blog, they talked about how that's an incomplete pass. You're doing a bid to connect and you're throwing the ball to your spouse or your significant other, but you missed it. So you're dropping these passes. You're dropping these passes all the time because you're not paying attention. And so the bid to connect is important. And I think the article is very informative. And I just knew that there was some validity behind my whole thought process of love and football. Right. And so I think what makes this workbook stand out is, well, the cool thing is it has like the little binding on the side, right? It has like this on the side so you can actually write in it because there's different, so they'll be like learning your playbook, right? So there's some space in here for you to journal, right? And it's meant for, your husband or your wife or your significant other to have these conversations and to write down your feelings. And so I have a chapter. So like the introduction, why marriage is a team sport, and I talk about that in the book. And then I talk about the downs. First down, learning your playbook. What is that playbook to you? Okay, so now to those who are my followers, to those who know me, I am Christian, and so in my world, it's the Bible, right? So the playbook is the Bible for me and my household. So when I talk about the playbook, I'm always using the Bible as a reference. And so everyone knows who plays sports that we're going to stick to the playbook. We're going to stick to the game plan, come hell or high water. And so that's what works for us in our marriage, as far as my wife and I, is that we're going to stick to the playbook no matter how I feel, no matter how you feel. If we stick to the game plan, we can win. I think one of the biggest problems with relationships and marriages is, remember, if one person is winning, ultimately the marriage is losing. Like that's how deep marriage is. I always tell people that don't marry someone shallow because marriage is deep. And marrying someone shallow will cause both of you to drown. So I think it's important that you marry someone who understands a team aspect opposed to maybe one person winning all the time. Intentional living says my playbook and the standard for my life is the Bible. Amen to that. So shout out to all the believers. But that's the perspective that I'm taking. And so number one, the first chapter is learning your playbook. One coach, one playbook, one marriage. The importance of being on the same team together and putting your feelings aside is paramount because we have to do what works best for the marriage, not just for us individually. Now, I think one of the cool things about, because you can still have your individuality as a spouse, but I think the importance is having a hobby, something that you can do outside of your spouse that still kind of gives you your identity, right? I think that's very important. I love podcasting. I love interviewing people. That's my thing. That gives me my own individuality and my own world. And my wife like doing her own things as well. And so, at the end of each chapter, they give reflection questions. First down, learning your playbook. So when you know your playbook, There's a question that says, how consistent are you in reading your spiritual playbook, i.e., the Bible? What challenges you can make to build that habit, right? And so that's something small that you can put inside your notes, like journaling. And then it has like a prayer at the end of every chapter. So those who really not really into prayer, there might be a little certain amount of trepidation with that. There's a guided prayer in here, so you can pray with your wife or your significant other. And I think that plays huge, because that's a piece of intimacy, is praying together. I think there's been so many women that I have talked to that said, I've been in relationships the majority of my life and I've never had a man pray for me and with me. Now they might say, I'll pray for you, but then go off and do their own thing. But to actually have someone who will pray with you, that's almost like a lost art. Is something that a lot of people don't do. So I'm hoping that a lot of men get back into prayer. What's up, Top? How you doing? Thanks for joining on this live. I want men to get back in prayer, and so that's what the first one is when it comes to learning your playbook. There's just a prayer that you can pray with your wife or your significant other, and so that way it takes a little bit of the fear away from praying. So there is guided prayers at the end of every chapter. And then let me say this real quick. So second down is the draft. This, even though this book is for more marriage relational, there is a chapter for singles, and it's called the draft. And so with this chapter, so there's some questions that you can ask when you're dating. How does your relationship with God looks like? How do you handle money, anger, and stress? And do you want children? What are your dreams? So these are some questions that you can ask on a date. And I asked this in the draft. What team will you be drafted by, right? And so, like, who's going to be the one that gets the engagement ring? Are you willing to turn down that engagement because you don't want to play for that team? You're like, nah, I'm good. Because there's been quarterbacks, I believe it was Eli Manning, and there's been some other quarterbacks, right? Who was like, no, I'm not gonna play for them. No, I know I'm a number one pick. Nope, don't draft me. I know I will not play for them because I won't work right in their system. And so I love that actually you're able to stand up for yourself and say, nah, I know he cute, I know he sexy, I know he's 6'3" and stuff like that, but I won't work well in the system that he's running because it's not going to highlight my strengths. And so that's an important part. So I talk about some of that in the draft in the second and on second down. And again, there's some questions that you can ask when it comes to being drafted. And when I say being drafted, I'm saying in terms of the ladies, because I do believe that a man should propose. Okay, so don't come for me in the comments. What people do is what they do. But I just believe that a man should propose to a woman. I don't think the other way around. Because I know somebody's going to comment and say, well, my auntie Jean, she proposed to her husband and they've been married for 79 years. And so I proposed to a man. Those are anomalies. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying the majority of people. So in the draft, let's pull a question that you can write in your journal on the draft. So one of the questions is, who are the mentors or spiritual leaders speaking into your dating life? So that's a question that you can ask. What qualities are more important to you to find in a spouse, and are you becoming those qualities yourself? You can write down those things in your journal. I think that would be very helpful because when you write things down, you take out all that gunk, all the stuff that's in your head, and you can write it down on paper, and it helps you to be more focused. One thing that I find interesting is most people, when they are dating, is they date on autopilot. I was doing some study. I think, yeah, this was in my ebook, Another Chance at Love, and I was doing some study, and it says that the majority of people date on autopilot. And that means that they aren't thinking. They just used to doing what they do. Like When you get up and you go and drive your car, you're on autopilot. You don't have to think to drive. So a lot of people live on autopilot when it comes to dating. They just do the same thing over and over again. And they have the same results because they're not taking time to actually think and do the necessary work that's going to create some change. So they dating different people. They're dating different people, but they have that person had the same qualities. You know, just the same different faces, just same qualities. It's the same person, and so I think that's when we need to come off autopilot because we know in the game of football you cannot be on autopilot. You have to think every single play, and I think that's going to help most people. So I'm not going to give away all the book, okay? I'm not going to give away all the book, but I think it's important that I have the ebook available, but I think the physical copy really helps because you can write in it. You can do it in the ebook as well. It depends on what kind of format you have and stuff like that. But I talk about on fourth down, I talk about patience and perseverance. Like how do you hold up when it comes to perseverance? What current challenge in your marriage or dating life is testing your patience? That's another one in the book as well. You'll be able to write that down as well. And I do believe these different things will help improve your relationship, understanding the game. In the NFL, playing through injury is often seen as a badge of honor. From dislocated shoulders to torn ACLs, players push through pain because the team depends on them. But the reality is, no one plays a game without getting hurt. And the same is true in marriage. And so this chapter is overtime, playing through injury. Can you play through injury? What happens when you and your spouse get into an argument, when y'all get into a disagreement, or they might have said something that really damaged you, that really hurt you because y'all were going back and forth and they said something that really hurt you? Can you persevere through the pain? Can you acknowledge that you've been hurt, right? So those are different things that happens in relationships and it happens in the game of football. You have to play through injuries. In marriage, you will have to play through injuries. It's just a part of the game. And they will tell you, if you're going to play the game of football, expect injuries. It just comes with it. And that's the way it works in marriage as well. Final play, recovery and moving forward. How do you recover after the injury? I talk about that as well. And so in the journal prompts, I talk about what will finishing strong look like in your marriage or dating relationship right now? And what areas do you need to forgive your spouse or yourself to truly move forward? Those are questions that you can ask and you can journal them down yourself. Locker room notes. I have some of this in the end of the book. Wisdom for him and her in the locker room. So for him, quarterback wisdom. Study your wife like film. Pay attention to her moods, her body language, and her words. She's always communicating. So listen. Wisdom for her, blindside protector wisdom. Right? I talk about if you've seen the movie The Blind Side, you see how important that left tackle is to the quarterback. Because a lot of times, even though the quarterback position is sexy, the offensive lineman draft isn't always sexy. So if you get someone, you get to draft a number one pick, somebody that's on the offensive line, it might not be sexy, but what you're doing is you're protecting the quarterback. And usually the quarterback is the leader of the team. And so you want to have someone who can protect your blind side. A lot of times wives protect the husband's blind side. She can see things that he can't. And those are wise women who are able to say, hey, babe, nope, don't pay attention to that over there. Nope, stay away from her, or don't make that move, that whole kind of thing. And I talk about in the Bible how wisdom is referred to in the feminine, right? So you want to marry a wise woman. I think having a wise woman is greatly beneficial when it comes to marriage. And a lot of times, you know, we looking at all the physicals. We checking out the TNA. We want all that stuff. We want the physical, but is she wise? Like, she can be sexy and not wise. And so now you mad at women because you chose wrong. And so I think it's important that you marry someone who knows, who can listen to the voice of God for her. So some blindside protector wisdom. Use your words wisely. The tongue is powerful. Speak life, not daggers. Build and not break. Love him through his insecurities. Even the strongest men doubt themselves. Your belief in him can restore his confidence. It's different things like that that has locker room notes, and you can journal and write about that as well in the book. And then there's a marriage game plan. And so there's so many different little nuances to this book that I think you would really enjoy for diehard fans. Marriage huddle. Say once a month, sit down for 30 to 60 minutes to check on how are we doing emotionally and spiritually. These are important questions to ask. What's working well in our relationship? Or what sucks in our relationship? Be willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. What do we do? What do we need to do to improve? How can we improve our team? In football every year during the draft, what can we do to make our team better? You know, okay, we need to make some changes and stuff like that so we can have a better record, a better chance of going to the Super Bowl next year. And that comes with a lot of evaluation. So you want to have that evaluation when it comes to your marriage. Uh, what are our shared goals for the next month? What are those goals? Let's talk about them. Because I think when you don't have goals, when you don't have a mission, it's easy to get off track. And so it's important to have those conversations. Schedule a date night. You know, we always talk about date night. Date night is very important. Pray together daily. Sometimes I know life happens. You can easily get away from not praying together every day, but I make an attempt as much as I can to make sure that my wife and I that we pray together and that I pray for her. And then there are some days I say, hey babe, go ahead and pray. You know, pray for us, or pray for the kids, or stuff like that. And it helps us. It helps deepen our intimacy. Pray together daily. Serve together. I think that's important. Once a quarter or monthly, if possible, volunteer at church or community outreach. I think when we do things that's bigger than us, I think it helps strengthen the relationship. So, what is it that you and your spouse is doing regularly, whether if that's outreach, whether if that's feeding the homeless, like my wife and I, we do stuff at the church, help feed the homeless and stuff like that. It helps our relationship, and it helps us to remember that life isn't just all about us. Um, and so we want to talk about film room reflections. They have that. This is in a book as well. Review the game, rethink the strategy, rediscover your why. Why did I get married? Like the movie. Why did I get married? And so when you can go back and think about those things, I believe that it will help put a refocus on the marriage and the relationship. So it's been almost 23 minutes. I got to run in my mouth. But yeah, pick up the book. Pick it up for you and your spouse, because you want your journal to be your own journal. You don't want it to be both of your journal. You want it to be your own as well. And then you can talk about the notes afterwards. So I'll have it linked in the description below. Love and Football, How to Play on the Same Team with Your Spouse. Go Browns, 216. We'll see what Shador do this year. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you later. Take care.